In the last lesson, we looked at the different layers necessary to create this music bed that's going to set up our lead guitar for success. But even as you saw the screenshots from the last lesson, you notice I didn't just create, a bunch of rhythm stuff and then play a guitar solo all the way through. There's lots going on here. There's lots of tracks. There's lots of takes. So we're going to go through what I've done over this passage of music and unpack my approach to recording lead guitar as a soundscape. And there's lots of different ways to do this, and lots of people have approached it vastly differently than I'm doing it. But this is more the modern way to approach it now that we have all the tracks in the world and all the takes in the world. This idea of playing a little thing, evaluating it, looking and listening in the context of what I've done so far, and then moving on, as opposed to coming up with an entire melody line. And this is the way that a lot of vocalists work as well. So you're going to see that approach here. Let's dive in. So even right here, for the intro, we start with these neat doubled rhythms on the telly. But you can see that I've muted things. I originally had this in there. And as I'm going and as I'm creating my arrangement, some things either cease to fit or didn't fit in the first place, but I leave them in there and make choices as I'm mixing and arranging. So listen to what it would sound like to leave those in. Too busy, and I preferred this to this beginning. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think I didn't even have the bass in there to begin with. And then I decided I wanted something that was a bit more. That's right. Yep. So initially it just started like this. Without all those other lead things in there. But I wanted something that hit a little bit harder. You can also see, though, let's get rid of these. Bring these back. There's all sorts of other lead ideas that I had. I settled on this. A very monotone, lots of variety in the pick approach, not even necessarily in time with the rest of it. It's kind of this mayhem thing right from the very beginning. And then this whammy pedal line here. And I'm just using a stock Digitech whammy pedal before my preamp. So I'm going directly from my guitar into my interface there, set on the 2-octave setting. That's not a plugin. That's an piece of outboard gear. But there's these other things in here that, as I started adding layers, I kept them, but I removed them from the prominence or altogether from the mix. Another line that I just think it got too busy. So lots of little lead things in here that it's good to try some things and it's good to leave some things and simplify. Over recording, there's nothing wrong with it because you may, in your arranging ear may end up having you eliminate things. And I think that's a great thing. Another example is this, another whammy bar thing. It just seemed over the top. Let's go to the actual solo stuff here now. Here's some more stuff that I left out. So already I'm creating this call and response thing happening where I've got this line, da 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 da. It's kind of this announcement. I'm announcing with my guitar. This is based out of my C position. And you'll hear more of that in a minute. But let's look at this tone real quick. Got some delay on there. We're panned over as part of the call and response. Bias effects, we're using a digital delay followed by a reverb. And we're using this dual amp thing. This was based on the Tosin lead patch or preset, which is great. I've taken a few things out, or I'm not using a few things. So we've got a 5150 model paired with, looks like maybe a Hughes and Kettner kind of model, boosting the mids a little bit. And that's something that I've crafted. I wanted to bring out that sort of bellish sort of sound. And it's important to note here that this is a mono sound, even though I'm using two different amps and blending those together. I particularly wanted that because I wanted this call and response sort of feel to each guitar line to have its own space. So I wanted the line itself to come from a particular place in the mix, but I also wanted the effects to be isolated to that particular place. This is why you won't see me running delays or reverbs on batches of guitars. I'll do that with vocals, for sure, where, we have a background vocal section or whatever, and you bus everything to that one reverb. But with guitars, when you're creating these soundscapes, I find it important for each one to have its own rig and its own space. That's helpful for the arranging because there's so many different textures that guitars take, and we tend to wetten them up so much and do different things with them that this actually makes your mix grow. Whereas by going through and having all these parts and bussing all your guitars to a single reverb, it's just not quite the way it's done. I've tried that, and the mixes sound a little flatter and are a lot less dimensional. We follow up that call with this response. And then you can hear the da-da-da-da-da-da come in again. See, we're building a conversation. Now this particular section is based out of that C form, just an octave higher. So we have our... And then on a separate track... we're playing around in this area. And then we milk it with the scale and create that melody line, that sort of walking around floaty melody after we've approached this arpeggio almost verbatim. Then bend. Then what's really handy about these call and response kinds of things, and then using the Cage system to support that, is we always have frameworks to go with. We've got our guy down here, and then we're going to answer him up here. Why did I put it on two separate tracks? Because I wanted this bleed through of holding out this note. And then you can hear so this guy comes back in, and then we have this neat other response. It's some other guy with a whammy pedal. There's a neat manual bend there. But that's done with the whammy pedal, played down here with a 2-octave jump from the pedal. You can hear that auto-panned oscillating kind of ostinato thing going on, the synth line, complementing where this line leaves off. Listen to the way the things are panned. Another answer. Right there. Then our first conversation starter comes back in. More whammy pedal here. Okay, so we have this. Now this is put on a different track, and I did that because it was a different take. I punched in, and I wanted to add a little bit of gain, and I wanted to have independent control of this preset. So that run, I wanted that on its own track so I could manipulate it by itself. But it's also a little drier, so that you than the initial conversation starter line up there. That run is based off of a walk down that breaks a lot of position rules. It's kind of a Satriani-ish thing. And it starts here. Lots of hammer-ons and pull-offs. Lot less picking. And I get on my my G string, and then I have this down up down pattern. And it's based off of an E Mixolydian type of vibe. But the key here to remember is, in this case, a lot of the other things that I do, I go for precision. This is more of a waterfall abandon kind of approach, where I'm not necessarily going to try to be in time as much as I'm going to try to be pulling time in a certain tasteful way. And it takes a lot of takes to be abandoned, but also come across as fitting in the context. But also, if you notice here, if I solo this, this was not played as a take. I kind of just trashed out at the back of this run. But I needed this note to nail it into the next section. You listen in context. You'd never know. But this is the way that I could bracket my lick. So as I'm working on going through and coming down that line, and then I needed to end here, but I just kind of trashed it out. I was going fast and it worked, but I played the wrong note at the end. And so I punched in on that last note. I'd be curious to see what my note actually was. Let's see here. That's what it was initially. That doesn't work near as well. I'm glad that I added this other note in there. Now here, that line is reminiscent of the very beginning call and response. So I'm bringing back a theme. Right? That's what we did initially. Now we're going. It's a different interval and different notes, but it starts with some of the same phrasing, so it's tying in that theme. Lots of arpeggios, right? That line right there is a bendy line played straight out of that G form pentatonic, or E minor pentatonic. and played a bunch of times till I got it cleanly. Ooh. Right here with this neat whammy pedal. Now there I left the but you know what? I think I would prefer this. Oh, you know what? No, it works having this in. It's probably because it was part of this other line here. Then we go on to the next section of the song where we're harmonizing guitars. But here, I've got this pedal tone thing going on. Perfectly okay with the fact that that G rings out. It adds a nice layer and build to a slowed down approach. We didn't just keep playing faster and faster with different lines. We kind of came down to this transition into the next part of the song. Back to the beginning theme. This is fun. This is creating a guitar lead ensemble. And what I've done here is taken 3 different lines. The same actual patch is on all of them, and I've figured out harmonies. And there's no magic to this. Understanding the cage system, understanding the different areas of your guitar and what's available to you is the very first step. And then using your ears and doing lots and lots of takes and experimenting with these different positions until you get something that's pleasing to your ears. That's really it. It's not about knowing a formula or knowing all the definitions of all the intervals. It's about using your ear over the context of the arrangement. They're not even perfect harmonies. But that's part of what makes it so nice is sometimes they move together and sometimes they don't. So they each stand on their own a little bit. Listening in context again. Were they all bent right there? Or did they all bend? Let's see. They certainly sound like they did together. No, I think just the high one did. But the timing works. Notice this guy, there's more picking there versus here. They needed that articulation at the top. All right, one more time here, without me interrupting. So this is an example of building a soundscape for lead guitar and then indulging a bit with your lead guitar ideas, but taking that soundscape mentality to the arranging approach. What kinds of layers can I create? How can I create call and responses? How can I work with harmonies? Lots of stuff to dig into. I encourage you to dig into these tracks, see what you can do with the tones, but more importantly, be inspired in your own musical creations as you unpack further what I've done with these tracks. We'll see you for more.